pushing all day.
So someone's already sick, so that just helped me to press record on this. So we will always have recordings available for you. We're always going to have, again, a classmate. I would encourage you to get at least one classmate colleague that you're able to debrief and to talk things out with, because folks can be sick. I was sick when I was teaching in March. It was very hard to try to balance everything. Your eyes get very tired. You don't want to be on Zoom all the time. So like, please know that at no point am I going to like take off any points or to wag a finger or to be mad at you for not showing up to class if you're sick, or if a family member needs you to drive them somewhere, or if your Wi-Fi doesn't work. Like, y'all, it's a global pandemic. So like, I'm gonna be graceful. I'm gonna ask you to be graceful. And if you have questions or comments about that, please let me know. But at no point am I going to take this out on you, because there's just so much going on, right? There are tons of U of M resources with respect to living your best and most fruitful life. So check those out on the syllabus, just for folks who have little ones, for folks that are in financial need, for folks that need various library resources. Like, so much is on there. So please feel free to check out the syllabus for those pieces of knowledge. So take advantage of them. Okay, typically I talk about a tech-free environment. So you'll see a bit of information on the syllabus about why having fewer pieces of technology up and going are helpful. We think we're good multitaskers. We're not. Like, the data really show that we are not as good as we think we are at watching TV, going on Instagram, doing a paper, reading. Like, something's got to give, right? So you're not going to be able to integrate all four of those things simultaneously into your mind at once. So just being mindful, if we are on a Zoom call and you're trying to check email, and again, I'm not too much older than some of y'all, and I know that I am on my email when I'm on like faculty meetings and stuff like that. I know it. So you don't have to say, oh, we're not doing that. I know that you're doing it because I do it. If you can, just be mindful of what it is that you came to SPH for. Like, why are you in this class? Why is it that you wanted to get your Master's of Public Health? What is it that you can glean from this? And if something is boring, if you don't like something, let me know, like, clearly in a respectful way, and hopefully in an email or in office hours, not on chat, like while it's happening. But, you know, just let me know if something isn't working for you, and I will try my best to change it around. But the goal is for you to get as much from this class as possible. So can I tell you, don't pick up your phone, don't check your email while we're on Zoom? Of course not. Can I tell you not to have Netflix going directly behind it so it looks like you're looking at me, but you're really watching a Netflix movie? No, I can't make you do any of those things, but I'm gonna just remind you that you signed up to be in this master's program, and you have a really important job, especially right now in this global pandemic, to learn how to change the world. So I'll just put that little light thing on your shoulders. Okay, we talked quite a bit about this in our norming already for our expectations, but just wanting to really be mindful that we're going to have as much of an inclusive course as possible. If I'm saying something wrong, again, feel free to let me know. If a classmate is saying something that's challenging to you, I'm also happy to mediate that. But we just want to have a class that's as inclusive and as respectful of everyone as we possibly can.
Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, yep.
On your syllabus, it says that, like, it says that your office hours, and then it says or by appointment. Should, like, if we can't make your office hours because we have class, should we still use that link? Should we still use that link to sign up like a different appointment?
I'm gonna drop the link. Well, actually,
or should we just email you?
No, I'll put the link. I have a calendar email link that I will just put in the Google for the syllabus. So let me do that as soon as I get a second, okay? So I'll put that on my list, but thank you for that. So I've already had folks email me. We've already been able to set up outside appointments, but I have another link for a Calendly account. So thank you for that reminder, Tasneem.
Will we be notified via Canvas, like when it's updated?
I will put it on the syllabus when you all are doing a group activity. So within the next 30 minutes, I'll do that.
Oh, okay. All right, okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, So on page 9, a big thing on the syllabus is to come to class prepared. So when something says it's due, it's going to be due before you come into class. So as an example, all of our assignments are going to be due on a Wednesday, and that's going to be prior to you coming into class. Why is that? Well, sometimes people like to do a little bit of working as they're in class and are not paying attention. So again, I want to make sure that you are getting the most that you can out of class. So we're going to have everything due before class starts. And it's also about the reading. So if you see something that says like Wednesday's readings, that's going to be reading that you should complete before you come to class on Wednesday so that you have knowledge of what we're going to do. I'm going to just close my window real quick because it's a little muggy. 1 second. Okay. Here's the thing about assignments. So I typically am like, no late assignments, period. That's it. Done. Can't do it. Again, we're in a global pandemic. I'm giving everybody grace. I'm giving myself grace as well. But here's why I'm going to encourage you to still try to submit your assignments on time while possible, right? If you are sick, if something is challenging, again, don't worry about it. If you are able to submit assignments on time, here's why I would encourage you to try to do it. We're going to talk a lot about like grant writing or submitting like manuscripts and things of that sort, the ways that folks are able to kind of make some changes in the world outside of a class setting. There are very real consequences for not submitting things on time. So there's story after story of people who have worked on a $6 million grant for months, for like 9 months, and then went to submit it and they were like a minute late and the granting institution said no, like period. So I'm going to encourage you all, if there is a deadline and you are able to get it done at that time, to strive for that, because it's just good practice for the real world. Even right now, as global pandemics are going wild, this is absolutely the case for a number of things that I've been submitting to. Like people are very serious about having deadlines and cutoffs. So I'm not going to like be a dragon and like shoot fire out if you don't submit on time, but I'm just going to encourage you to do such. Okay, this kind of connects to the last page about communication style. So with respect to emailing about assignments within a 24-hour period of it being due, as a reminder, I am going to try my best to respond to you within 48 hours. So if it's due within 24 hours and I either have just a few more emails ahead of yours or I didn't get a chance to get to yours, that would really stink. So I just want to make sure that you all are emailing with enough notice, with enough time so that I can respond and be responsive to you. So in that way, if an assignment is due Wednesday, I would encourage you to try over the weekend to do the most that you can. And if you're having some challenges, feel free to email me on Monday or see me in my office hours on Tuesday or Janae her office hours on Monday, okay? All right, so with respect to language, I'm very clear about earning grades. So some folks will say like, oh, you know, they gave me this grade or I got this grade. I'd really like to think about grades as earning. So it's about effort, it's about a good deal of working and challenging yourself to learn as much as you can. But at the same time, I really want to be very clear that like, this is not the semester for us to nitpick over like this point and that point. I'm going to be as graceful as I possibly can with you because we're all going through some challenging times. So I don't want you all to stress about grades. I really want you all to learn. That's the goal of this class. All right. So the goal is for you to learn, to take away as much as you can and not for us to like go as, you know, detailed about grades as you may in other semesters. You will be fine in this class. You'll be fine in other classes. I just want you to learn. Okay, so the grade is an assessment. It's you knowing how you scored on something. It's not going to, it will likely not be a final grade for anything. So I'm just going to say that. Okay, we talked about assignments being due before class. And then the last thing that I'll say is that when Ms. Fair came and talked about those projects that she's looking forward to in December, I'm gonna revisit those projects after the midterm. So for the first few weeks of class, we're gonna be learning about these mini interventions, as we'll call them, like the Twitter Twitter threads, op-eds, videos. We're gonna learn about how to do those, and that's gonna help you to do the final project, but we're not gonna talk about the final project until after midterms because you don't need to do anything right now about it. Everything that you need to know about it is going to be learned through those smaller nudges or interventions, okay? So don't stress about that. We'll get to that in 9 weeks after the midterm, okay? Okay, Jackson asks, if we want to understand a grade, not challenge the grade, can that discussion still have the ability to lower the grade? Jackson, honestly, so Jackson is referring to like this segment in the syllabus that's like, if you want to challenge your grade, can it lower it? That's from old language. Certainly if you want to understand your grade, come to office hours, let's talk about it for sure. This is because some students sometimes like push and push and push. And so like one conversation may not be sufficient and they want to continuously push to not just understand, but to challenge the grade. So Jackson, certainly if you or if anyone else in the class wants to understand more about the grade, that is absolutely not a penalty. It's really this thought that if we have a rubric or if we have a good sense of, Janae and I have a good sense of what a grade should be, and someone wants to challenge that because they think that it should be higher per se, then I think that is just, it's about conflict, right? It's about conflict and it's about managing expectations. And so I don't want you to not ask questions about it to get clarity, but I think it's more so about the conflict, if that's helpful. Alrighty. So we've talked about readings and assignments being due before time. So we're trying something new. We're rolling stuff out 2 weeks at a time. And so why is that? The world is changing rapidly. So even some of the examples we're going to be talking about today just happened like yesterday or the day before. So I want to keep readings and examples as fresh and as relevant as possible. If some folks are finding it challenging, mind you, I've never met a student in my life who's read more than 2 weeks in advance. But if you are one of those people, and if you are the person who is going to change my whole life, let me know, and I will try my best to add a third or fourth week for you. But as you can see, the course is already fairly scripted with respect to what theories we're going to talk about, like when things are due, but it's just a matter of what you're going to read and what we're going to do that might shift a bit. So again, if it is important for you to have more information than 2 weeks out, feel free to let me know and we can certainly talk about it. But I want to be able to have as fresh and as relevant of a course for you as possible. So that's why we're rolling it out 2 weeks in advance. All right. Questions, comments, or concerns? Thanks for sharing resources throughout and for asking questions as well. If you do have a question, you can feel free to come off of mute right now, or you're welcome to add it in the chat. So I'll just give a few moments for people to get a question, comment, or concern out.
Can you please explain the last part again when you talk about the 2 weeks? So you expect us to know, so we have to read like every week, we should be 2 weeks, ready for 2 weeks, a class that is to be held 2 weeks later.
So this is what I mean. If you go on the syllabus right now, you'll only see readings for this week and next week.
I see.
So there aren't readings that we've set up yet for 3 weeks out.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I misunderstood.
Oh, not a worry. So, but this is helpful, Vishaka. So Janae and I meet on Thursdays, and we're going to roll out that information after our Thursday meeting. So either on Thursday or Friday, we'll send an announcement out to the class via Canvas to let you know when things are posted. So you'll never have to guess, and you'll never have to say like, oh, I wonder when they post it. We'll send them out. It'll typically be on a Thursday or Friday, but then it'll be 2 weeks still before that, that class, just for people who may read 2 weeks in advance. That's what I mean.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
I know you said that the readings are only two weeks in advance, but every assignment that like is due, that's already all on there, correct?
Correct. Yep.
All right. Thank you so much.
Of course. Yeah. Of course, Leanne. Yeah. And so just one other point about that, Tasneem. What we'll also do, so say something is due on a Wednesday. I think our first one is due either the 16th or 23rd. We're going to introduce that assignment in class at least a week before. So we're going to have time in class, and I'll show you in just a bit how the class will be structured. We'll have time in class to practice it, to talk about it. So you will at least have a week. You'll have the weekend to practice it again, you know, on your own. And then you'll at least have 2 office hours, mine and Janae's, before it's due. So we just want to build in enough time.
Thank you.
Of course. Yeah, my pleasure, Carly. Okay, any other questions, comments, or concerns? Okay, I'm going to keep rolling, but if you have something that you want to ask, please feel free to use the chat function, and I will answer at some point throughout the class. Okay, so what you can expect to see, this is something that I know in a world that's really quickly changing, that can be helpful. So let me lay out expectations. Let me lay out what the flow of class is going to look like. On Mondays, you're going to come in and there's going to be a Kahoot at 1 o'clock. So that's another reason that you want to be here on time, because you might miss some points if you are late. So Janae is going to lead our first Kahoot, and it'll actually be next Wednesday because of the holiday. But Kahoots will typically be on Monday, and this is the opportunity for you to get some points by submitting questions, and Janae will lead that very soon, and also to answer some questions. So just as a reminder for folks who read the syllabus, or if you did not, if you get the highest Kahoot score out of the entire semester, you get a $20 Amazon treat. So just wait for it. So that'll be happening on Mondays when we kick off the week. The lecture on Monday is going to primarily be about the theory itself, and I'll explain. You'll see today a bit of that, what I'm talking about. So there's going to be an in theory and in practice. On Monday, we're going to be resting a lot in theory. We're going to have a group activity that supports the theory. Then we'll report out, so spend some time reporting out. If there's any discussion or if I need to clarify an assignment, that'll also happen on Monday. And then an exit ticket, which we didn't get a chance to do on Monday, but I'll show you in just a bit what that looks like, will end the class. On Wednesdays, if you had a question that didn't get answered, I'll start that response on Wednesday. So there'll be new information about some of your questions or clarifications if need be. Then we're going to launch into the lecture, and that'll be more practice oriented. We'll have a group application of that. So some sort of activity or application with a group. And then again, you all will report out on that. And we'll do the same thing on Wednesdays to discuss or have an exit ticket. So that's typically how we're going to roll. Janae is going to get in touch with y'all about the way that she prefers the Kahoot situation. So just wait for that, hopefully tomorrow or Friday. Okay, this is what an exit ticket would typically look like. This is what we would have asked you at the end of Monday. We're running pretty close on time, so I'm not going to ask you these things from Monday's class. But generally speaking, the first question is, what's one thing you learned today? The second is, how can you apply something you learned to your own life? And the third is going to be, what still needs more clarity for the next class? So again, if folks, not at this moment, we'll do it at the end of this class, but if folks want to come off mute or if they want to utilize the chat function, this is just a way of participating, of getting your voice heard. One other quick note about participation. Again, I want to stress that we are not going to be in the business of nitpicking this semester. So I don't really want you all to be super stressed out about like, did I participate enough? It's again for you to be able to demonstrate your knowledge or to get questions answered, but we're also trying to have a variety of ways of doing that. So you're going to have access to the whole group. You're going to have access to the chat in small groups, in your presentations, in your Kahoot questions. There's so many ways of showing that you're reading or participating. So please don't stress about your level of participation, okay? And I know that that's challenging to hear as a student. That's part of the job. But believe me, like we're going to work together as much as we can this semester. Okay, take a quick stretch break because we just finished our first class. Whew, took 30 extra minutes, but we did it. All right. All right. Okay, so what is this thing called psychosocial anyway? You're in a class that has the longest title on the face of the planet, psychosocial factors and health-related behaviors. When I tell my friends that, they're just looking at me like what were all the things you just said out of your mouth? So when you need to tell your friends and family what class you're in, let's give them some answers on what we're talking about. All right, what we're going to be doing for the rest of the class today is to discuss what psychosocial is, to talk a bit about theory, praxis, and the happy medium, a quick experiment, and we'll do an exit ticket. Oh, this is super hard with all of these.
Professor,
yes.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
Do you suggest that we should be taking notes right now, or should we just be listening when you lecture like this? Like, I'm not sure like what you think would be best for us to like learn.
Yeah. You know, Tasneem, I think it's varied for a lot of people. So one thing that I often don't do is share slides in advance, just because I do want your attention as much as possible, rather than having the slides in front of you and saying, oh, I know what she's about to teach on, let me watch this Netflix show real quick. So that's one reason that I don't always share slides in advance. But if you want to have like a notes section on your computer or on, you know, a notepad, I would encourage you certainly to take notes. And when you get the slides, if it's helpful to kind of stick those notes into those slides, that can be something that you might want to do. So, but it's really such an individual experience. I would encourage you to certainly write something down, but the manner by which you do that is up to you.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, so this idea of the prefix of psycho, so that means relating to the mind and behavior. And when we add the suffix of social, this idea of relating to activities in which you meet and spend time with other people. When we bring those two things together, that's when we've got this idea of how one thinks about and behaves with respect to the greater environment and others. That's what we're referring to on psychosocial. So it's not just about your own individual thoughts and behaviors, which is typically what we think of when we talk about psychological processes or psychological thought. It's typically about the individual. And it's not just about the social component, which is how you relate to other folks. It's really those two things together. And what's going to differ in most psychological theories or practices, rather than just thinking about how this is going to impact the way that we think, this is specifically in this class going to be about how we behave with respect to our health and health-taking behaviors. So psychosocial factors of health-related behaviors is how we think about and behave with respect to the greater environment and others, and in particular, with respect to what types of behaviors we take for our health. Okay? Again, feel free as I'm talking to utilize the chat function if something needs clarity or to come off mute. Okay, for those of you who have had me before, you already know what time it is. You know what's on the screen. In fact, let's see, I can't see everyone's that's on here, but Dania, are you there? If you are, can you come off mute? Dania, are you there? Okay, Ramonda, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Ramonda, what's on the screen in front of us?
I'm supposed to know this.
Well, think back to when you had me before. Like, what is it that I'm not good at?
Reading charts.
Reading charts. Oh gosh, it's just so hard for me. It's really challenging to understand charts and graphs and figures, like just something I missed in my whole doctoral education. It's just really hard. So Ramonda, just tell me one thing, as you already know, that you see or know from this graph. You know how I roll, I just need help. What is it that you know?
Looking at the graph, I can see the multiple aspects that it can affect an individual's health status. So each part plays a certain percent in it.
How did you know that? What is it that you saw?
First of all, I saw the title at the bottom of the individual's health status.
Oh my gosh, that's so helpful. Okay, so there's information about the title of this figure that's at the bottom. So I'm now orienting myself to this, and now I know, even though there are 50,000 things on my screen that are not letting me see this, that there's something about the individual factors about health-related behaviors. Okay, and then you said something about multiple factors. How do you know that?
Looking at the pie chart, I can see that it's separated into multiple sections.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, Ramonda. I'm gonna let you off the hook on this one. Someone who has not had me before, tell me more information. So now that I have the basic foundations that Ramonda has so wonderfully provided for us, what's more information about this pie chart?
It breaks down into like percentages. So someone's health status is only 50% their own personal behaviors, but they don't have control over the other half, that being their environment, their genetics, or their access.
That's a really interesting way of seeing that. And I actually, if I understood this pie chart a bit better, I would have interpreted it a little differently, but that's such a really helpful way that you just described that. Does someone have maybe, and thank you, I didn't see your name or your picture pop up. Can you share who that was?
It was Alex.
Hi, Alex. Thank you so much for that. Does maybe one other person want to tell me what it is that they see in this pie chart?
This is Holly. I was
Okay.
going to say that it's like parts of a whole and they all contribute. So taking one out or replacing it with something else would change either the percentage or the outcome. So they're kind of working together.
Oh, thank you so much for that, Holly. I really appreciate that. Okay, so we've been given 3 pieces of information from these amazingly smart students in this class. Again, my doctoral program did not train me sufficiently to understand what it is that I'm looking at, but you all were able to help me orient myself to this graph, to understand components of it, and to even interpret it in different ways. But what we just learned about was this idea of psychosocial factors of health-related behaviors being this interactional component. It's not just stagnant. It's not one person's individual understanding or contribution. It's not just what these 2 people are doing together, but it's really both of those things. And this graph helps us to understand that quite a bit. So one's own behavior contributes half or 50% to what it is that their health outcomes are. And yet there are still, and this is what Alex was indicating, there are still other components like the environment or genetics or access to care that are important. So you can't look at any one slice of this chart and say, this is the only thing that I need to target. This is the only thing I have to work on. These really, all of these elements are quite important. And what we'll be talking about today with behaviors, also how the environment impacts it, what our genetic contribution is, and can folks even access care are such important components to this whole pie. So thank you for that, Holly, Ramonda, and Alex. You all did really well on that. Thank you.
Dr. Anderson.
Yep.
What could someone argue that that this pie chart is not wrong, but since since someone's environment influences their behavior, or their access to care influences whether they go to the doctor, that influences their behavior, could someone say that the percentages were a misrepresentation, if that makes sense?
It's a great point, and I will actually show a video later in class, hopefully we get to it, of all the of how that actually plays out so beautifully. So it's a great point, and this is something that you'll hear me say time and time again with respect to statistics or figures. We can make it say or do whatever it is that we want, but a better representation here might be, more Venn diagram, right? Where things are overlapping, or we have things that are interacting so that you can see how one thing impacts the other. So a great point, and we'll also talk about that with respect to our frameworks next week of how to look at things both from ecological, so what's going on in the environment, and also a life course perspective. So taking the same phenomenon and kind of exploding it lengthwise and also vertically as well, if that makes sense. So you can take any piece of information and say so much about it and represent it in so many different ways. Just like you said, this might be better represented by an intersectional or Venn diagram kind of graph. So this does not tell the whole story. So I think that's great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna keep rolling. So now we're going to utilize the Zoom poll. It's not as fancy and fun as Janae's Kahoot is going to be next week, but I just want to ask a quick poll. So before we get into what the heck we're going to be doing in this class, I'm going to launch this poll. on here. And I just want to know about your thoughts on theory. So do you dig it? Heck yeah, or that's a no for me, dog. And then, but why? Well, it's pretty clear. I've never understood it, or it's just so boring. You can answer more than one on number 2. So, oh, someone is really into theory already. Oh, look at this. Okay, now the truth is coming. Because I was like, not everybody is going to be into theory at all. Fantastic. Okay. Really good to know. Lauren loves theory. Fantastic, Lauren. We're going to get along smashingly. Okay, just waiting for a few more people to respond, but by and large, it looks like this is actually a pretty theoretically loving crew. For those who aren't, that's totally fine. You're hopefully by the end of this class going to dig it and love it. So for those folks who said the why, for some people, about a little shy than half, thank you, Carly. For those of you that are half into its clarity, you know, that's helpful. But some folks say it's that they've never understood it, or it's just so boring. My goal really is to try to make this as clear and as entertaining and enjoyable as possible. Some theory, like I've tried, some theory really ain't that fun, but we're gonna do our best to understand each thing and to really find some enjoyment out of it. So that was just a quick poll. We'll again, kind of drop some of those throughout some of the classes, and sorry, I'm trying to, there we go. Just to kind of check engagement and understanding. But we will definitely work as hard as we can to make it less confusing, to make it as clear as possible, and to make it fun for you. All right, so now a quick activity. So before we really launch into theory, let me kind of give you a quick breakdown of what we're going to be doing in this class if you haven't got a feel for it yet with the assignment that Ms. Fair talked about on Monday. My goal is to talk about the health behavior of wearing a mask properly for Detroiters as our case study for the year. And we're going to talk a lot more about what that looks like. I understand that COVID for some people is going to be an incredibly touchy subject. And for some of us who have already experienced it or experienced loss, it can be really challenging, especially if all of your professors and all of your classes are kind of beating the same drum. My goal is to try to absolve ourselves of the kind of the later outcomes of like what happens if you don't wear your mask. I want to focus squarely on mask wearing as the behavior. Okay, and I hope that is fine, and I hope that you all are on board with that. I've had a lot of conversations with people to kind of test whether this would be something that would be palatable. So if it is not, certainly let me know. But my hope is that we can do what Ms. Fair has asked us to do, which is how do we have Detroiters properly wear their mask? So we haven't touched theory yet. I've kind of explained a little bit about what psychosocial factors are, but we haven't touched this word theory that we're going to be spending so much time in class on. So what I'm going to ask you to do right now, if you have Twitter, can you open up your Twitter? You're not going to send a tweet, I promise. But if you have Twitter, open up Twitter. If you don't have Twitter, feel free to open up a Word document or like your note pad on your laptop if you do have the ability to do that. If you don't have a computer at your disposal and you have paper and pen, feel free to use that as well. So essentially, we're just trying to get us either typing or writing in this moment. So pull out some sort of utensil to type or write with. So Lauren is clarifying, as folks are doing that, Lauren is asking, focusing on the outcomes of wearing a mask as the behavior rather than focusing on the outcomes of not. So Lauren, what I mean is, we're not gonna talk as much about the impact of if you don't wear a mask. So that's essentially, there's the behavior and then the consequence of that behavior. We're not gonna talk as much about the mortality issues. We're not gonna talk about health outcomes. We're going to talk squarely on the behavior itself and not try to kind of weigh ourselves down with the challenges that come after that. Okay, so Meredith was asking a question. This is what I was going to get to in a second. So yeah, if you are not a Twitter user, and this is the whole point of this exercise. So great question and great answer already. It's actually 280 characters, Michaela. That's how dorky that is. So if you don't have Twitter, and this is what I was about to say, and you're using Microsoft Word or Notepad, 280 characters, which is probably about, we'll say like 25 words, give or take. So if the average word is like 7 letters and then we have spaces and punctuation, we'll just say about 25 words, okay? This is what we're gonna do. On your own, we've already opened these things up. We're gonna craft a tweet so that Detroiters will properly wear their masks. You have 1 minute to do this. So 25 words, 280 characters. Jasmine is already stressed out. I apologize for that. You have 1 minute starting. 1 second, let me get it on my clock. You're getting extra seconds. You're so lucky. And go. 15 seconds to change the world. 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hands up, pencils down. Ramonda, I see you. You're still writing. Down. Stop it. All right. What we're going to do, and Janae, if you are there and you're able to help me in this, that would be great. What we're going to do is break into our first group activity. We're going to just share our tweets aloud, or as many words as you got through to your group. We're going to discuss the following, and I'll put this in the chat so that you're able to see it. How challenging you found this. Jasmine has already said that they were stressed. Sorry about that. What made your tweet work or not work, and what elements of others' tweets worked particularly well? So let me go ahead and put that in the chat as Janae is creating groups, and groups maybe of 5 people each, Janae, if you are able to do that. Let me make sure Janae is there. Janae, are you there?
Yes.
Okay.
To do that, I need you to hover over my name in the participants list and to make me the host.
Oh, the co-host isn't sufficient? That is really a whole...
Yeah, I just realized
that. Yeah, that's funny. Okay, yeah, I thought co-host would be enough. All right. So it is in the chat. If you can select what I just put copy what I just put into like a Word doc or something for you, because I'm not sure if the chat is going to transfer over when you get broken out into groups. But as Janae is working to put us into groups of 5, just copy what I just wrote down so that you have access to it. Okay, I'm gonna decline mine. Yay, that worked.
Wonderful. Should we just allow them to be in the breakout groups for about 5 minutes, or how long are you thinking?
Yeah, let's give them an opportunity to get to know each other and stuff too. So let's do 10. So maybe at 2:05, we'll bring it back. There's no way on earth I'm going to finish all this. This sucks. I suck about these things. Timing is just so hard. It's hard. How's it going thus far? How are you feeling?
It's going pretty good. It's a lot going on.
Yeah.
I have to really get strategic with my time. But for the most part, it's going well. I have a list of things. I'm creating an agenda for our meeting currently. Also, I just want you to be aware that the breakout rooms do not record.
Mhm.
So that's something else that I added to the list to just mention. And then I know it's recording, so I'm not gonna say the person's name, but a student had a health related issue just now, so I sent you an email.
Okay.
They had to leave the meeting. Yeah. So.
Okay. Yeah, this is definitely juggling in a way that is just very hard. It's very hard, but we're doing well. Yeah, I used to jump into people's groups, but we have it's probably 13 or 14 groups.
Yeah, we have 13 groups, and it actually looked as if it had already sort of been created. So all I had to do was click more, and then I clicked breakout rooms, and it automatically was broken up into 5 groups. If I wanted to like manually assign certain people to groups, that was an option, but I just did random since it doesn't really matter, I guess, right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know we had talked about looking into that, like the likelihood of people being randomly assigned, so we'll talk about that more tomorrow as well, but cool. Okay. Well, I'll let you have 8 minutes of breathing to yourself. Maybe we'll pull back just at like 2:03.5, just so that they start to see the notice, a little early.
Yes, I set a timer, so
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I really enjoy these incredibly stressful challenges that I make students do because they freak out. But the point is not to write a good tweet. It's to really say that they don't know what to put in it, and that's what they're going to say. So that's all. Okay, well, enjoy some moments, and I will see you in just a bit. Are people incredibly stressed out right now? Very good. Okay, Janae, when you get the opportunity, can you either allow me the sharing capacity or to make me host again? Alrighty. Okay, traditionally, we would have a ton of time. I'm on mute, sorry. So traditionally, we would have quite a bit of time to debrief. That, like the having to take the class over from the first day is putting us a bit behind. So I just want one person to tell me how that experience was to write that tweet and then to share it out loud. What was that experience like?
I can go. This is
Thanks,
Brandon. For me, I personally don't have Twitter because I think it's kind of messy. So I'm like, I don't have much experience writing tweets or anything, but it actually came like pretty naturally or something. So like before we went to the breakout groups, I had like 2 ideas, and then based off like our conversation with everyone, I actually like made a third one, like right now. So I don't know, overall, I think it was like a good to have feedback, but I also think it's important to have like the collaboration to see like how other people will see it. And then I guess like kind of tying into the foundational aspects of social media, whether it's like our content, photos, hashtags, and things like that. So recognizing the purpose of and the benefits of like what you put into it, and then just keeping it very concise overall. So I think it helped out a lot.
So Brandon, I'm incredibly happy for you. You were not supposed to say that. You were supposed to say it was very hard, that you did not have enough theory to support what you were going to say, but that's not what you said. You said it was great. So
My bad. It was horrible.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, Brandon. No, it is wonderful. The things that you said are truly important as well, to get collaboration and to understand not only the audience that you're writing for, but the norms of that audience, right? And like what it is that folks use to support that statement. So I'm totally excited that you did have that, that experience. Okay, so everyone can see? Thumbs up real quick if you can. Okay, great. So the idea is that we can use, and I think it still works from what Brandon was saying. We have to understand components, right? Whether that's theory, whether that's norms, we have to understand the components that go into what it is that we're trying to do to get folks to change their behaviors, or at least to modify them. So we know that theories can help to produce effective, sustained behavior changes. And we also know that health outcomes are better improved when theory is applied or more thoroughly applied to an intervention. So this is Nathan. Nathan is one of the young people in Detroit who's going to be relying on you to come up with these really impressive tweets that Brandon has at least 3 of right now, these really impressive op-eds, videos, et cetera. But these smaller interventions that we're going to be developing to change people's health behaviors, these are like faces of those folks right here. I'm going to keep rolling because I probably have like a minute per slide left. So I'm just going to just keep rolling. And if you have questions, comments, or concerns, we'll definitely address that in the next class. So we've talked now about psychosocial. We know that things like your smaller interventions can benefit from theory. So what do we even mean by theory? Here are 3 of some of the definitions that if you were able to read, you came across. But generally speaking, I'm going to just read this first one: a set of interrelated constructs, definitions, and propositions that present a systematic view of phenomena by specifying relations among variables with the purpose of explaining and predicting that phenomena. So let's get into a bit more concretely what that looks like. Theories have a few principles that can help us to remember what those characteristics are. I don't know if anyone is old enough to know what G-Star is as a clothing brand, but if you remember what the acronym G-Star, then you'll know that G stands for general or the broad application. So a theory can allow us to broadly apply it across different phenomena. It can be supported or not. It's something that we can test. So we can use measures or constructs to test this idea. It should be abstract. So if it's super specific, it's going to be really challenging, again, for it to be general, to apply it to other things. So it should be somewhat abstract and flexible to apply to a few different situations. And it should be replicable. So we can test it again and again, and that's going to hold its ground. It's going to be able to stand up to those tests again and again. So those are the characteristics of a theory. And again, we'll provide all of this to you all in our PowerPoint slide in just a bit, so you don't have to write every single thing down. Theories can tell you a few different things as well. So why people are or are not engaging in more positive health behaviors, what you need to know before developing an intervention or public policy. So again, if you saw that there are explanatory theories, things that help to explain the phenomena, and then things that also help to change. So how do we shape program strategies to reach people in organization? What do we even need to evaluate to demonstrate this program or policy effectiveness? These can be things that help to explain what's going on in the world or how to change the behaviors of some people. With respect to this class, again, for an expectation or just to kind of give you some idea of what it is that we're trying to do, I want you to be able to recognize the most common theories. So if you read from the textbook, if you either have it physically or if you were able to use the PDF, the chapter that we read introduced the most common theories that are that show up within the public health literature. I also want you to be able to critique and improve theory. So if something doesn't sound quite right, if it doesn't sit well with you, we can use things like, sorry, my mind just, we can tailor or we can target some of those interventions to fit the groups that we're thinking about. And then we're also going to apply theory to practice. So to me, it's not enough just to know what the theory is, which is why we'll divide the class the way that we have it with Monday and Wednesday, so that we'll have time for theory and time for practice. Also within the textbook, something that popped up, how are the theories used in the articles we read? So this is staggered with respect to the most frequently identified thing. So if you're reading some articles, if we're presenting some PDFs to you throughout the semester, a lot of the work will be informed by theory. So the vast majority of articles within the public health sphere are informed by theory. Some of them apply theory, some more even test theory, and some build or create theory. So the vast majority of things that we're going to be talking about are simply informed by theory and are not going to be in and of themselves either devoid of theory or doing some of the later things like applying it or testing it or building or creating it. But to know theory, to be able to read the vast majority of the articles that we're going to read or that the field relies on, we have to know what theory is. We have to understand this theory because so many of these articles are informed by that. So what should we know when we're reading about theory, when we're looking at some of these articles? You have to understand what a concept is, which is the major idea of a theory, what a construct is, which are concepts developed for use in a particular theory, and a variable, the operational form of the construct to be measured in a specific situation. And I don't know about you, but when you're reading that, that can still be kind of vague. So I want to clarify what those things are using an example of a conceptual model. So I'm going to show you a conceptual model, which you saw on Monday, but a conceptual model before we jump in is a diagram of proposed causal linkages among a set of these concepts believed to be related to a particular public health problem. So all the things that we just talked about, those three elements are going to be shown in this conceptual model ahead. Okay, I showed you this slide on Monday. This is a theory that I developed with my postdoc mentor called the recast theory. If we have more time, I would play a little more with this, but I want to be able to explain and kind of differentiate what those concepts are that we just talked about. So concepts are bigger picture ideas. So within my work, I think about protective familial mechanisms. That's a concept, that's a broad concept. Or how these are related to, so essentially the bolded items or the broader pieces within that text are concepts. They are bigger picture ideas. So protective familial mechanisms or various risks, those are greater concepts. But when we get more particular, the constructs that I'll be using within the theory itself, those bolded items like racial coping, self-efficacy, or racial coping, those are getting more specific. So I'm taking this larger idea of risk factors and I'm getting more specific of like, well, what are the mechanisms? What are those specific ideas that are underlying some of those concepts that I talked about in my broad statement, my elevator pitch? And then variables are what we can actually measure. And a quick way of thinking about variables is the word vary. So how do some of these intermediate outcomes, in particular, depressive symptoms? So depressive symptoms, if I gave someone a measure of depression, it can go from say 0 to 20, right? So that varies. So some people might have very low depressive symptoms. Some people may have very high depressive symptoms. That variable then tells me something about the greater construct of an intermediate outcome, which tells me something even more about a concept of like these greater outcomes that people face. So this might be a little confusing still, but concepts are the greater idea, constructs get a bit more specific, and the variables are the identifying measurable components that vary within this conceptual model. We'll have plenty of time to reintroduce these elements, but the long story short is that whenever you see a theory, it's going to have a lot of these elements that are part of it. There's going to be text that's going to introduce you to concepts. The conceptual model itself is going to have constructs, these larger constructs, and then there are going to be the variables, the things that you measure to talk about those constructs as well. So I'm going to keep zooming. I'm so sorry. We only have just a few minutes, but if you have questions, comments, or concerns, throw them in the chat and we'll get those down. Okay, one other thing that I thought was really helpful about some of the readings was that the theories that are developed are often not completely devoid of other theory. So it would be silly for us to kind of just throw all the theories out of the water. And we're going to use this theory of recast again as an example of that. So we know that racial discrimination is a unique stressor, and I'm happy to talk to people about that. But a lot of the work that I've done has shown how racial discrimination is really different from other stress variables. So what we did was take a look at one of the most predominant models of stress and coping that exists, the transactional model of stress and coping, and we'll revisit that in our stress and coping week in a few weeks. So we took the predominant stress and coping theory that said that stress leads to coping, which leads to subsequent psychological outcomes, right? So that's a part of it. And we said, okay, we're not completely done. That's not enough, but that's a really good start. Then we took a look at some elements from self-determination theory, which we'll also talk about in a few weeks. And we said, okay, to be competent in something really helps you to think that you could do something really well. So we'll take those elements of competency and efficacy and pull those into this as well. And then we also thought about, well, what about how thinking about something really well, your ability to think through, can take us to do something. So if I have efficacy in my ability to do something, will I actually do it? So efficacy leading to coping. So those three disparate elements of other folks' theories we put together, and with this idea that discrimination is a unique stressor, that was this element that kicked off this whole theory. So you can see how we built from other theories while thinking about this really specific stressor of racial discrimination to kick us off. That might be summarized as the Bob Ross approach to theory, where like an artist, this was a quote in the textbook, like an artist, they do not depend on a paint by numbers approach. rehashing stale ideas, but use a palette of behavior theories, skillfully applying them to develop a unique, tailored solution to problems. So the problem in my case is racial discrimination, but this was how we were able to apply those theories that were already well used to that. I know we're running out of time, so I'm going to briefly just say, in theory is not enough, in practice is not enough. It's really how those two things work together, taking what we know and applying it to the field, studies and education, having data that supports what it is that we think we know, and letting it inform interventions. So I introduced RECAST as a theory to you. My intervention of Embrace, which we'll talk about again at a later time, utilizes the same components and target specific behaviors. And again, I'll go through these with you in detail when we have more time, but target specific behaviors that are going to help us to achieve the health behavior change that we want from our theory. I was going to show you this clip, but instead I'll tell you very briefly what it is. This is when Keeping It Real goes wrong. If you saw Jerome Adams talk about how the behaviors of Detroiters, or sorry, not Detroiters, behaviors of folk of color contributed to them transmitting COVID. This was a 1-minute clip of him saying some really great things at one point, but then his translation really caught a lot of flack and did not sit well with people. And as Brandon said, Twitter can be a very messy place. He got dragged on Twitter very, very hard for some of the things that he said. So if you do want to see this, feel free to click on the link if you have not, but it's a 1-minute clip about when Keeping It Real goes wrong. And I'll just end on this very briefly. So right now we're seeing, even in real time, that the NFL is doing things like putting slogans in racism, it takes all of us, into the end zones. And what I'll say about that for my closing thought is that if we know about the theories regarding racism, if we know what it takes to intervene about racism, and I just showed you an entire theoretical model of what it's going to take to end discrimination's impact on people, does painting the words "in racism" or putting it on one's jersey do enough after especially 3 years of really being harsh on your players and not giving one a contract for fighting against the system? Is that enough? So to think about, are our interventions commensurate with the system? Have we integrated enough theory into what it is that we want to do to actually change the, not only behaviors, but the outcomes of folks in the world, right? So certainly, so Sophia, I actually bang with the NBA quite a bit more in their policies, but the NFL is really just off the chain for thinking that they could do something like this after 3 years of Colin Kaepernick icing out. So anywho, so the exit ticket, I'm gonna just drop this. I know you all have to go. So for those folks who do have to go, roll out. But if you want to share one thing that you learned today, you can drop it in the chat, how you can apply this to something that how can you apply something that you learned today to your own life? And what still needs more clarity for next class? If you want to answer any of those three, feel free to drop them in the chat. Otherwise, have a very fantastic day. Janae and I will reach out to you soon with the new readings. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Lauren, virtue signaling for sure. Or I can't remember. There's another term for that, but yeah. Thanks, Allie. Yes, Meredith, it is, truly. Leah, I will do my best on that. You can definitely find the content on like one of the columns of the surveys, or excuse me, of the readings for the syllabus. And then the outline is going to be essentially what I was talking about in class with like, here are the 5 kind of steps that we're going to take for each class, but I'll try to have more information on what specifically will be shared as well. Okay, thanks, Tasneem. Thanks, Jasmine. Meredith, we'll get better together at social media use. We can, yeah, we'll go over constructs and.
Can I ask you a question?
Yep, go ahead.
When we're developing theories, are we always building upon on theories, or how do we develop a new theory? Like, is it always, are theories always developed on already defined concepts and constructs, or is there another way to it?
Yeah, so from the reading today, and just generally speaking, at this point, we have defined so many elements in our sciences, right? I'm not going to say that nothing is new, right? But there are so many constructs that have been defined already. So it would likely be hard to not see some sort of construction of your ideas in someone else's theory. So I'm not going to say that it's impossible, but it would likely be challenging to not see what it is that you're interested in embedded into someone else's work. Yeah.
So when we like build upon that, that is not considered plagiarism because we're taking from that theory.
So I'm not sure if I'll have you all read my theory per se, but if I did have you read my theory, you would see sections where I explain, here's the transactional model of stress and coping. Here are all of these other models, and here's why it's insufficient to explain the phenomena that we're looking at. Okay. So I give them credit, I cite the meth out of them, and I say, that's great, but it doesn't really do what I need it to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Other thoughts? Hey, y'all, everybody who's left, I'm gonna stop sharing so I can see you. Hey guys, what's up? Or folks just really enjoy being here and they just want to see.
Oh, I was gonna ask.
Yes.
So are we going back over? I guess the slides that we went over today a little bit better because I'm trying to get the hang of this whole theory thing, but I was one of the ones that say I hate it, but I want to love it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Honestly, thanks so much. And Carly as well. Carly's pointing to themselves as well. This was like the most rapid introduction to just like the content of this idea of theory. So every time we go over a theory, we can reintroduce those components each time. So it's not going to be the last time you'll hear me say, here's a construct, here's a variable, etc. So I just wanted to give folks who, I know that people are coming from a variety of backgrounds too. Some people might be coming from an English background. So people may have never even heard the word construct before. So I at least want to like sprinkle that in, but my goal will be to go over it more. If you don't get enough of it or you catch me slipping, feel free to keep me honest and just say like, I didn't get that and I need more, okay?
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you.
You're welcome, take care. Other folks, what's up?
So when you said that we'll also be learning about critiquing theory, there's a thin line between critiquing and actually just trying to find faults. Do you think we would be able to like segregate that? Because like often like when I used to give presentations, I wasn't able to very effectively critique theories. So it always used to come down to I would just be taking little nitbits here and there and trying to critique it. Really? So I would like to know, do you think that how would that ability come about?
So can you maybe say it in one more way? I want to make sure that I'm answering it appropriately. So say it one more way.
What I want to understand is that, do I need to put in extra effort in order to understand how to critique theories? Because
I see.
I'm not very good at that.
Okay, no. So I think, so what I just showed you on one slide is an example of a critique of a theory where the transactional model of stress of coping says that all stressors are alike. So we should, in theory, be able to use the transactional model of stress and coping for any stressor on the planet. But if you're doing racial discrimination or racism work, you understand that racism is a really unique stressor that doesn't operate the way that other ones do. So I can't use PMSC for everything. That's what I mean by critique. So just finding either where it doesn't fit or apply, or where you would have the idea that that's not going to work. The goal is not for you to develop a theory. That's why I wanted to go through the goals itself. So you don't have to worry about after critiquing, what do I need to do with it next? It's just where might this fall short, or where doesn't it apply?
Okay. All right. Yep.
Good. Take care. Okay.
Yeah, so I just wanted to verify, and I can send you an email if that's better. I have a class on Tuesdays that's during office hours. So should I send you an email to set up a separate time to meet?
That'll be included in our Canvas announcement. Sorry, I was trying to come up with the
Okay.
word. So I'll put it on the syllabus right now of like how to get in touch with me. But in case
Okay.
you don't see it on there, we'll also put it in the Canvas announcements. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Lauren.
Bye.
All right. Well, it is 2:30, so I'm going to hop off this puppy. You all have a great day. Okay.